Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the 2021 California recall election. So, it is September 14th, the day is here, and in this video, we're going to be looking at this election that's going to be happening today. So, for some background, for those of you who don't know as well, there is a recall election happening today in California. It is for whether Gavin Newsom should stay as governor of California or if he should be replaced by a Republican, and we'll get into who the candidates are in a second. But this is a pretty interesting election because it started off as, Gavin Newsom was supposed to cruise to victory. It did kind of tighten up in the middle, and then, started to become a little more lopsided again. So, I guess the most suitable headline for this is an article that I really enjoyed was Polling Error, How One Survey Changed the Newsom Recall Campaign. So, in early August / late July, I think that Gavin Newsom, to be quite frank, was not taking this recall election seriously. I think he was thinking that, it is a waste of time for us to be thinking about this election in a state that Joe Biden carried by 29%. So, I can totally see why he thought that, because no matter how unpopular Gavin Newsom is, which, he's not popular, but he's not unpopular enough to think that he would lose in a D plus 30 state, I think that he thought he was going to underperform Biden, but that he was safe. But a poll came up from Survey USA that I remember tweeting about very distinctly that had Gavin Newsom losing by 11%. And that absolutely panicked Gavin Newsom in his campaign. When they saw that poll, they went insane. They must have thought, they thought they had this election in the bag, and all of a sudden they are losing by 11%. And that is, the turnaround in that week was insane. I remember, the Newsom campaign, they weren't really running too many ads. No one really cared about the election. A week later, everyone was going crazy. They were saying, the Republicans are winning this race. It's a toss-up. They can absolutely, Gavin Newsom might be ousted, and, he's really picked up his game, and he called Joe Biden, he called Kamala Harris, and said, you guys need to get over to California because this is getting way closer than we thought. So, in a way, that poll that, the shock poll that had Newsom down by 11, I think was a blessing in disguise for Democrats because it woke them up. Because I'll be honest, they were not taking this race seriously until they saw a poll that had them down. And this happens to a lot of people. I think it happens to a lot of competitive races. And in this case, Gavin Newsom thought he was safe, saw that poll, and then rethought his entire campaign strategy. And I think now it's working because look. The Democrats, I think, were always favored to win this race, and I don't think there was a point in time where I would have said Larry Elder or, John Cox or whatever was going to win this race. But at the same time, there was certainly, I think, worries from the Newsom campaign. So just to take a look at a polling aggregate that I made, and for the record, this is, very basic math. I'm sure you could do it. It's, 5th or 6th grade level math. I did it in, 20 minutes. I'm sure you guys could do it even quicker than me. But there are two new polls that I think I might do, but and I think I might post it on Twitter later. But there are all the polls that I could that I could weigh from August 26th. That came out from August 26th to September 14th. All the polling that I could actually weight that had enough polling because I can't weight polls that that is their first time polling because you can't look at their past predictions. So what I did was, for all the polling that I could actually look at that actually had done stuff in the past, I was able to wait. And, it's pretty simple. I just looked at some biases they had in the past few elections, and then weighted accordingly. So, I would say at least that this sort of method has been pretty accurate. Now, there was a discussion in 2020 about something called the Clinton handicap, which essentially gave Trump some points back for, if he was down by 12 in Wisconsin in a poll from October 30th, and he was, in 2016, the polls in Wisconsin underestimated him by, 6 or whatever. You give those 6 points back to Trump and then some. So, that's still, I think, a solid way of mapping the polls out. But at the same time, you still kind of run into a few errors with that, especially with averages. So you have to add a net error, which is what I did. I didn't show it on this spreadsheet. I showed it on a few other ones. But anyways, I did that in 2020. It worked out pretty well. I did call 49 out of 50 states correctly there, so I'm pretty proud of my 2020 prediction. But it's still not a perfect method, which is why I'll show the prediction because I want to be transparent, and I'll show what my aggregate is saying. But at the same time, I'm going to make another prediction. So I guess 2 bites on one apple for me, which is a win. So if this falls within the margin of error, which is 2%, so if Newsom wins the recall by in between 11.4 and 15.4, I think I'll tout this aggregate, I guess, because I'm a hypocrite. But I think more realistically, I'll do some more analysis here. So this is really vote data, and the lighter the county is, the less ballots returned. So the state of California as a whole has returned 33% of their mail-in ballots. So again, this by the way, this election is all mail-in, so you're still going to be doing, it's hard to estimate what the election day turn is going to be with Republicans because, even though in 2020 and in special elections they tend to vote more on election day than with mail, this election's all by mail. Like, there's no in-person voting. You just vote by, like everyone gets mailed a ballot, and then you can either drop it off or you just mail it in. So my family mailed in their ballot like the second we got it because, I believe it or not, I talk about politics at home. So they were aware that we were going to be getting mail-in ballots, and I was like, guys, you got to vote. So, we mailed in our ballots, and I'm glad that we did it early because I think, like a few days later, the state of California emailed my parents saying, we received your votes. That's good. But, now, just after my mini tangent about that, we have to look at which counties are returning ballots at the best rates. So right now, the county that is returning their ballots at the lowest percentage is easily Imperial County. It's right here. So Imperial, about 18% of ballots have been returned, and the highest return rate is from Sierra County. Sierra County has 56% of ballots being returned, and 6 ballots. They've only sent out 2,000 ballots, so that's not really doesn't mean much. Sierra County is a pretty Republican county, so I guess it's minor good sign for the GOP, but it's a very small area. And I think what's better sign overall for the Democrats is that they're doing quite well in the Bay Area. So the Bay Area is what I'd say the Democratic stronghold of California. Southern California's got some pretty blue areas as well, but the Bay is always blue, and it does so while having very good turnout rates for them. So San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, these counties all have, I think, mid to high 40s in terms of percentage returned, and Marin is even higher. I bet Marin's 53%, so they're up there as well. But San Francisco is at 46%, San Mateo is at 48%, Santa Cruz is at 45%, Santa Clara is at 43%, Alameda is at 45%, and then you have Contra Costa up here, which is at 44%. So, they're tracking ahead of the state as a whole, 33%, so the Bay Area all in, mid to high 40s, and I would say at least that's a good sign for Gavin Newsom because, as you can see, in 2018, Gavin Newsom, he won San Francisco with 86% of the vote, he won San Mateo with 75% of the vote, he won Santa Cruz with 77% of the vote, he won Santa Clara with 72% of the vote, 71% of the vote, he won Alameda with 80% of the vote, and he won Contra Costa with 68% of the vote. So, very, very blue counties, and they're returning their ballots at pretty good numbers for the governor. So I think that's all I have to say for this aggregate or for this graphic. I don't know why I said aggregate, but what I will say is what I'm noticing is that rural Hispanic counties like Imperial, San Bernardino, and Kern. Now these are all counties that have significant populations of Hispanics, especially those live in rural areas, and they're not turning out to vote in this election for whatever reason. They're not voting as much as other groups are, and I think this is going to be, I actually wrote a Substack article about this, so you can go check it out, but I said that I think that if Newsom does regress with every group, which I think he will to a certain extent, relative to 2018, but I think that his biggest regression will be with rural Hispanics, because rural Hispanics turned away from Democrats in 2020, and they also turned away from the governor to a certain extent in 2018, and they're not turning out in this election, so I think that the ones that turn out are going to be more favorable to the GOP, and they're not going to be very pro-Newsom this time around. So Imperial County, not good for Newsom. San Bernardino, I think, is, can't really tell. This was a Biden county, but it was only by 10, and this was a county that Bush carried twice. So it's trending blue, but it's mostly because just the cities down here, but the rural areas up here are very conservative, even though they have significant Hispanic populations. So, yeah, now, anyways, to just take a look at some of the counties that Gavin Newsom won in 2018, or that Trump won in that Biden won in 2020, that Newsom lost in 2018. Butte is, I would say, the number one that comes to mind. This was the county that Newsom lost by 6, that Biden carried by 4. We also can look at Inyo County, which is pretty small. Inyo, it was the county that Cox carried by 10, that Biden, I think, won by 2 or 3. Oh yeah, he won it by what? yeah, he only won it by a couple hundred votes, so it's pretty close. Orange County was like a 0.3 county for Newsom. He only won it by, it was very, very narrow here, actually. It was, he only won it by like 6,000, or by 4,000 votes, so that's interesting. And it was a pretty solid county for Joe Biden. He won it by like 9, so wasn't too much of a competition in Orange County, but as you can see here, John Cox did still get less votes than Donald Trump, but, at the same time, he outpaced him. Riverside was a county that Joe Biden won, the Gavin Newsom lost. It was very close, though, and, it could flip in this recall election. I don't think it will, because Riverside, again, has a lot of rural Hispanic voters that just aren't going to come out for Newsom. But I would expect, minor regression for Newsom in these areas anyways. But just to look at my county preview, I'm counting on Newsom, I guess on the Republicans flipping these 2 counties in here. And by the way, like when I say Republicans, I don't mean like Larry Elder's going to win these counties. What I mean is that they're going to vote to recall. And, I wish there was a way of making it more clear on this website, but you can only do blue and red. But as you can see here, I do have Newsom losing Orange County. I think my model's a little too bearish on him here. Like, they have him losing by 7. I think he'll lose by like a point. People are underestimating Gavin Newsom in Orange County because, it's a suburban county that's trending blue. So there is upside for him here. And I get that he's not favored to win it by most people, and I do think, my model has him losing it by 7, so I'm not going to be like blue Orange County, but it's still a county that I think people are going to underestimate Newsom in. But I'm pretty bearish on him in Riverside. I think he could lose it by 8, which is what they have him losing it by, or what I have him losing him by. San Bernardino, he's behind in this forecast, and by the way, when I say forecast for this map, I just shifted counties by equal amounts and then, saw what that would look like. But San Bernardino, they have Newsom losing it by 5.6%, which, to me, I would say at least that is pretty reasonable. It really comes down to how well Gavin Newsom does with voters in the city of San Bernardino itself, because most of the votes in San Bernardino come from San Bernardino County, come from the city of San Bernardino itself, not from the rural areas in the north. But we'll have to see again. This is a really weird election, so I could be totally off, so I'm just kind of guessing here, but I would assume that he loses these 3 counties. He'll also come really close to losing San Diego. He'll only win it by like 6 or 7, which is what my forecast is saying. There was a poll that came out, I think last month, had him actually down the county by 6%, and I don't think he'll lose it, but this is a county that, Joe Biden won it pretty easily. It was a county that he won by 14 in 2020, or in 2018. Joe Biden won it by 26 in 2020, or by 23 in 2020. So, I would say at least that this area is quite significantly swingy, at least, because there are Republicans that voted for Biden here in San Diego. And by the way, actually, the mayor of San Diego is actually running this election, Kevin Faulconer, as a Republican. He, for the record, I think he's their strong candidate, but he's polling behind John Cox and Larry Elder and Kevin Paffrath. So, to me, it doesn't really matter that he's in the race, because if it was just a him versus Newsom recall election and he'd actually ran a decent campaign, which Larry Elder has not, I think the race could be a toss-up. But the Republicans are really blowing this race because Larry Elder has not made any attempts to reach out to voters in California. California is a very progressive state. It's a state that Joe Biden won by 29%, and it's a state that is very, very liberal. And Larry Elder has said that he wants to abolish the minimum wage, that he is not anti-vaccine, but he says he doesn't think vaccines are necessary. He's very, very pro-life. He is very conservative, and, when you run as a hardcore conservative, even a radical conservative, in a state that Joe Biden won by 30%, that's not a recipe for success. As blunt as, I don't like to be blunt on this channel because it makes me seem it makes me seem biased, but I'm saying, from an objective standpoint, Larry Elder's campaign has not been a work of art. It has not been comparable to other Republicans in the past. Like Susan Collins in 2020, her campaign was really the best campaign that we saw in that election. And Larry Elder is, I think, blowing this race because Susan Collins, unlike Susan Collins, Larry Elder has not learned how to appeal to voters on the other side of the aisle in a state that is against your party, because California is a blue state. And when he says that, when he says this stuff, when he says, I want to abolish the minimum wage, that does not bode well in a state that is very, very liberal. And he also has some personal scandals, according to multiple reports, he was high on marijuana, and he brandished a gun at his fiance at the time during an argument. So, the Newsom campaign, I've seen that headline basically everywhere. They're trying to, paint Larry Elder as, basically crazy, and it seems to be working because Democrats, I think a lot of them are voting for Newsom, not really because, my mouse is going crazy. I'm not even touching it. It's moving. There's a ghost here. The ghost of Red California is touching my mouse. They didn't like what I was saying, but anyways, like, I don't know if you guys can see that, but like my mouse is like drifting across my screen and going crazy. But anyways, as I was saying before this ghost grabbed control of my mouse, the issue that the Republicans have in California with Larry Elder is that he is such a polarizing candidate in a state that Joe Biden won by 29%, that it's just hurting them, because they actually had decent candidates. Like Kevin Faulconer, who is the mayor of San Diego, who won elections in a blue area, actually knows how to do that. And I think that if he ran a decent campaign, he'd be leading in the polls and he could potentially be beating Newsom. But Democrats are just turning out for Newsom because they're so scared of a Larry Elder governorship that they aren't even considering voting Republican or voting to recall no matter what, even if they don't like Newsom. So if the Democrats kind of lucked out with that. And Larry Elder, even if he didn't run this bad of a campaign, I just think that Faulconer would have been better, because that's Ted Faulconer, former mayor of San Diego, pretty solid candidate for the GOP anyways. So I think that is it for my analysis of the candidates. But I will say that I think that we'll know the results of who would have won the election if Newsom was recalled, because I think Newsom's going to stay, and I think he'll win by, like, my aggregate has it at 13.4, but I think he'll win by like 16 or 17 or maybe 18. I'll say 17 for now. But I think that on the second question, if Newsom is recalled, who you want to be governor, I think first will be Larry Elder, and I think he'll grab like 25% of the vote. Then we'll see Kevin Pafford, I think, coming in a close second. Kevin Pafford is a pretty moderate Democrat, kind of a new Democrat who is, running a pretty weird campaign. Like, I haven't seen any ads for him, and he's just kind of like there, I guess. It's hard to explain, because Larry Elder is someone who he's actually campaigning. He is running ads. There are signs for him. Kevin Pafford is just kind of there, and like he's on the ballots, like he's a YouTuber and real estate developer. So he has experience, but not really the standard experience. So yeah, I think in third we could see it. I think it's John Cox, and John Cox is the guy who ran against Newsom for governor in 2018, as you can see. And in fourth place, it'll probably be Caitlyn Jenner. No, actually, no. Probably Kevin Faulconer, because Kevin Faulconer, he has a base of moderate Republicans that could vote for him, and there are a couple of Democrats who might vote for him because they like him as the former mayor. Because Kevin Faulconer, he'll probably do well in San Diego County. I'll say that, and like he might win that. But he might win San Diego County on the second ballot. But I'm interested to see what Democrats do, because the Newsom campaign is urging them to vote no on the second question. They're just saying vote no on recall, leave question 2 blank, because they don't want to have contradictory messaging. But at the same time, there are going to be some Democrats who are going to vote for Kevin Pafford or John Drake as a safety blanket, just in case Newsom does get recalled. So it's this is a complicated election with a couple factors going here. So I did make a video on how to vote on California's recall election. Came out last month that you should watch if you still don't know how to do that. But I think that'll be it for this video. So yeah, this is my county prediction. We'll see you. You're more than welcome to come back to this video tomorrow, or whenever you want, to see how wrong I was. But I have Newsom winning this race by 13.4% in my aggregate, 17% in my gut prediction, which is just me pulling a number out of my behind. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one.